In this lesson, we're going to talk about multiplying and dividing integers. We've already talked about adding and subtracting integers, so now we're going to wrap up the operations today. You'll see that I have four little faces here. They're not all smiley faces, and they don't all have the same eyes. You'll notice that the first smiley face that we see to the left, I have the words positive, positive written above the smiley face. What this means is that when you multiply or divide integers that are both positive, you're going to get a positive answer. So you can see that my positive and my positive is going to make a positive happy face. Now, what about a negative and a negative? Well, a negative and a negative, both are the same sign, just like the positive and the positive. A negative times a negative, or a negative divided by a negative, is also going to be a positive. Crazy, right? You can see that by my little eyes here. Negative, negative, gives me a positive smiley face. Now, the two that we just discussed, you'd notice that we have a positive and positive, negative and negative. Both of them are the same sign. Now, what if you had two numbers that were different signs? What I mean by this is, over on the positive, positive, I could have said that my first integer was a 3 and a 2. And if I were to multiply 3 times 2, I would get a positive 6. Same thing with the negative. If I said negative 3 times negative 2 and I multiplied them together, I would get a positive 6. So both answers would be positive. Now, let's talk about when the operations of the integers are different signs. So what happens when we have a positive number like positive 3, and a negative number like negative 2? I just picked these two numbers out of random. Now, if I were to multiply or divide those, because they're different operations, they're going to give me a negative number. Now, I'm just kind of working with multiplication right now. If I multiply these together, they give me negative 6. So a positive and a negative, two different signs, are going to give me a frowning face. And then my last one, now what if I flip them around? What if the first number was negative and the second number was positive? So the first number, let's say, was negative 3, and the second number was positive 2. Well, a negative and a positive, they're different signs. That's going to give me a negative answer. So my negative answer in this case, again, would be negative 6. Now, I've got this really, really cool hand trick to use, and I'd love to explain this to you. It might be a little confusing over a video, but I'd love to show you in class as well. But basically the gist of it is, if you were to take like a sticker or a pen and you were to write a plus sign on the top of your hand and a minus sign on the bottom of your hand, and you stick your hand out with the back of your hand facing up, and you said to yourself a problem like 3 times negative 2. Well, the first number is 3, but anytime you say the word negative, you have to flip your hand so that the palm of your hand is facing upward. So 3 times negative 2, I would flip it up, and my answer would be a negative, which should be written on your palm. So this works all the time. As we get into bigger problems and you practice these, you're going to notice they work the same. If you try negative 2 times negative 3, well, the back of my hand is facing upward. Negative 2, well, I said negative, so I got to flip my hand, times negative 3, I got to flip it again. The answer is going to be on the top of my hand, which is a positive number. So again, if you need some help with that, feel free to come and ask me in class. I'd be happy to explain that to you because it's a very helpful tool. Okay, so let's look at some problems. Multiplication, division with the same sign. Remember, same signs, either positive, positive, or negative, negative, are always, 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 always positive. So let's look here. 3 times 4. We know it's going to be a positive number. It's going to be a positive number 12. Negative 5 times negative 2. They're both negative. They're both going to be a positive number. Negative 2 divided by negative 16. I know this is kind of tricky, but the idea of this is it's a positive number. And 2 is going to go into 16 8 times, so I'm going to say 1 out of 8. We'll talk more about that simplifying process later on. Negative 4 times negative 5. Remember, parentheses, that means multiplication. You'll also see multiplication by the dot that we have. We no longer use an X for multiplication. We just don't use that anymore. We use the dot or we use parentheses. So -4 times -5, both are both negative numbers, so that's going to give me a positive answer. And 25 divided by 5, both are positive numbers, and I'm dividing them, so I'm going to get a positive 5. And my last one is going to be -48 divided by -6. Well, they're both negative numbers, which is going to give me a positive number. What about different signs? All right, now we have different signs. They all have different signs. Anytime they're different signs, your answer is going to be negative. So in the first one, I'm going to have -6. And then 77 divided by -11 is going to give me a negative number, -7. -6 times 5 is going to give me a -30. They're all going to be negative. -24 is going to get divided by 3 is going to give me -8. 2 times -7 is going to give me -14. -16 over 4 is going to give me -4. Okay, this is a great time to pause the video and see if you can try to answer this question on your own. Simplify each expression and then circle all the problems that will result in a negative answer. So pause the video now and give this a try, and then go ahead and resume the video so that you can see the solutions. All right, for the first one, I noticed that I have different signs. So my answer is going to be a negative number, and it's going to be -20. It is a negative answer, so it does say circle all the problems that will result in a negative answer. So I can go ahead and I can circle that problem. The next one is going to be 30 divided by -6. Well, two opposite operations. I have a positive and negative. That's going to give me a -5. Another negative. I'm going to go ahead and circle it. -35 divided by -5. I have the same sign. Remember, same sign means positive, right? So I'm going to have a +7. That is not one of the answers I'm going to circle because it's positive. -7 times -3, two of the same signs. All right, that's going to give me +21. Another one I'm not going to circle. 2 times -12. Different signs. I have a +2 and I have a -12, which is going to give me -24. That's another negative that I'm going to circle. -12 divided by 3. I have a negative and I have a positive number. That's going to give me a negative. And to be exact, it's going to be a -4. 55 divided by -11. Different signs. Different signs means negative. So -5. And my last one, 40 times -2. I have a positive and a negative, so I have different signs, which is going to give me -20. All right. Let's go ahead and model a multiplication situation. How do you say this expression? 3 times -2. Well, when you're thinking about multiplication and what it means, this is actually meaning this. I'm going to write it down. What this means is that I have 3 groupings of the number in parentheses. I have 3 groups of -2. Now, I apologize, my number line is kind of wonky. So I'm just going to say that this right here is 0. Please forgive me that they're shifted a little bit. Just shift everything to the right a little bit. But here's how you represent it on a number line. I have 3 groups of -2. All right, well, one group of -2 is I'm going to start at my home base and I'm going to go down 1 arrow to -2. That's one group. I have 3 of them. So my next group, I'm going to put a little line with a little arrow. And then I'm going to do my third group, a line with a little arrow. Each one of these groups, notice I have 3 groups, and in each group I have -2 spaces. Did you see that? I'm going to go ahead and change my pen color, and I'm just going to give you another problem just to kind of show you the difference. What if I were to say 4 groups of 3? 4 groups of 3. Hopefully I can fit this on my number line. I'm going to go the other way. Draw a little line. The first group is going to be 3. There it is. That's one of my groups. Here's two of my groups. There's three of my groups. And my next one's not going to quite fit, but pretend that it did. It's going to take me up to 12. Notice that I have 4 groups of positive 3. Each one of these has 3 units inside. So I have 4 groups of negative 3. That's how you represent a multiplication problem on a number line. Could I use chips? Of course I could use chips. Think about it when you say it out loud. 3 groups of negative 2. Well, wouldn't I do something like this? Do you see my 3 groups? Let me change my pen color so I can circle them. Here's 1 group. Here's 2 groups. And here's 3 groups. I have 1, 2, 3 groups of negative 2. Kind of cool, huh? What if I did the other one? What if I said 4 groups of 3? All right, well, 4 groups of 3. Wouldn't that look like this? Oh. 4 groups of 3 would look something like this. Notice, I have 3 in each group, don't I? And how many groups do I have? I have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 groups of 3. That's how I would represent multiplication using chips. We aren't going to talk about modeling division or multiplication this year. I'm sorry, division with number lines or chip this year, just multiplication. All right, that is the end of our lesson on multiplication and division of integers.